Kia ora and good evening and welcome to the Huddy Hui for our 51st episode. It's only me tonight and it's going to be a special episode because we have a woman whose involvement in rugby is simply amazing. Not only she played for the Black Ferns, Black Fern number 113, but she is also played for Wellington for a long period of time. We'll talk about her very famous story with the Wellington Pride, is what they've called now, and also her role as the president of the Wellington Centurions Football Club. Erin Rush, many thanks for coming on the Huddy Hui tonight. Let's talk about your Black Ferns debut. You played 2 tests against the World 15, but tell us the story about how you were selected and how you found out.
Well, I was selected after being rejected countless years. And in fact, I totally didn't even expect to be selected, and I didn't even bring basically an overnight bag. I totally thought I was going to be on the plane home again. And my name was read out. I did have an incredible trial. I did play very well, but I'd had good trials before. And so I didn't expect it. And isn't it interesting when you least expect it, then it comes.
Well, of course, and you're substitute as well. You came off the bench as well, and those are happy memories when you turn out for your national side, particularly the Black Ferns. Let's talk about the Black Ferns. We had Daryl Sursa on the Huddy Hui 2 years ago, and he talked about the culture of the Black Ferns. Tell us about what's special about the culture in the Black Ferns environment.
Well, I don't know what it's like now, obviously, but then it was just incredible focus, really. And there was just a total unwritten rules and unspoken words that you just did what you had to do. There was no one was ever late. No one forgot to carry the bags. You swept the sheds. You were respectful. You were polite. You were so proud to be there. And Daryl's management team and his leadership is one of he's a quiet, understated, but very determined person, and he set the scene, and we all just thrived in it. And of course, Farah Palmer, my time, was the captain as well, and that is how we just were so delighted to be there, and we worked really, really hard to stay there, and that meant that we did whatever we had to do.
Of course, the Black Ferns, it's a special year not only for them, but it's a Rugby World Cup. It was supposed to be played in 2021, but this has been moved to 2022 due to all the events the last 2 years. Black Ferns have had a tough time. They had a tough end-of-year tour over in Europe, didn't win a game. Now they've got Wayne Smith in charge, and they played the Wallaroos on Sunday in what was probably described as absolutely atrocious conditions. Yep. Let's talk about the Black Ferns. What are the improvements they can add to their game, and what differences will Wayne Smith, in particular with Graham Henry there, add to the culture of the Black Ferns?
Well, I think start with your end of your question. I think those men I don't know them personally, but they seem to be the sort of people that you want to play and, play hard for, and the sort of leaders that you want. And so hopefully their culture will be of that amazing combination, which I think works of a team of a champion team rather than a team of champions, or whatever that line is, where you just come together and you do it for each other. And if you do it for each other, you'll do it on the field. So I do hope that. I was citing the matches on, I don't know if you know that I'm a citing commissioner as well, Brad. So I was doing the women's matches on Monday, and I thought the first half of that was atrocious conditions, but I thought the first half of the Black Ferns match was forgettable, and the second half was actually a much more impressive showing. I feel that we might have a few older players, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I wonder whether they are fast and fit enough for the game, and that was worrying me in that first half. And there were some really good changes quite early, actually, and the whole front row went off, and a new front row came on, and they used the waterlogged pitch better by kicking the ball on the ground and so forth. And that's what I was looking for, and I was like, yes. And we were starting to win our set pieces and so forth, and it all started to come on from there. So I was very, very entrenched in the games on the weekend and very excited and we're happy for their win.
You mentioned that you're a citing commissioner, being a former rugby referee myself. There's often the yellow cards and the red cards. Tell us about how you got into being a citing commissioner and what that involves. Does it happen exactly straight after the game, or is it the next day that you start looking at those reports that come through?
Well, I'd never heard of a citing commissioner until I got an email from the New Zealand Rugby Union in 2017 asking if I'd like to be one. I didn't know this whole other part of the game was even there. So what it means is that we are looking for, it's all about keeping the game safe. So that is the ultimate goal. So where you may hear of a player has gone up to, the judiciary, well, a citing commissioner has written a report putting him or her there. So that is where we see foul or dangerous play that should have been a red card or close to it. And that is, there is all the like the head high tackles, the tip tackles, foul, dangerous play, ugly play, unnecessary play, but it has to be at close to red card level. That is where we step in. And then we're watching the game live, and almost all the matches from home on the tally, and we've got live Sky recorded, or in the case on Monday it was Spark Sport. And then if there's anything that we feel needs to be looked at further, we get hold of the broadcaster who is broadcasting the match straight after the game and ask them to send all the angles that they've got. And they send it down on the internet, and we look at all the angles, because on TV you only see one or two, but they obviously recorded many. And then we decide whether we do feel it's worthy of taking it to the next level. So that's what we do. And I thought it would be a very sad little job, like quite a not a very positive one, and I have loved it. And it's not like that at all. I get to see many games of rugby I'd never would probably have been interested in watching in some ways. Lots of ITM Cup for a start, and now I'm doing Super Rugby Pacific, and I'm doing the match on Saturday night. And I'm actually going, as I was a non-travelling reserve in the Black Ferns for 2 World Cups, which was really, really disappointing. And I was awful, hoping someone would hurt themselves so badly that I'd get, called over to Spain or wherever. But I'm actually going to the World Cup at last, Brad, as a citing commissioner. So I'm going up to Auckland and Whangarei, which I'm very excited about and proud.
Well, that'd be awesome. I finally get to go to the World Cup, and what is really quite an important job. I know what you mean about the different camera angles that you don't see on TV or at the stadium. Sometimes I do the timekeeping in the TMO box at the Sky Stadium, and you do get to see all the different pictures. So what you see on TV is not always what you get the opportunity to see what the TMO or the citing commissioner does as well. Yep. Super Rugby, of course, a flurry of yellow and red cards. And most of those, do you have to worry about on a Monday or the next day? Or
so when you get a red card on the field, we don't do anything because the red card was given, and we're not there to judge whether it was given correctly or not. It's already going to the judiciary with a red card. Yellow cards, yes, we're looking at those to see if they perhaps should have been a red card, and of course often there is parts of the game there is not even a penalty or anything, but something's gone off the ball or whatever. So we have to pretty much get cracking straight after the game. So it's not waiting days or anything. There's a bit of a time limit. So I can be up till midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning, wait if we've got a game that's late for New Zealand, waiting for medical evidence, doctors' reports, other managers' reports, and so forth. So it's a big deal in a way, because it is someone's livelihood, and you want to make sure you're really right and you feel confident in your decision. And I don't take it lightly, but it is also a game of rugby, and people and mistakes happen and so forth. So it's helpful being a former rugby player, and I can say I could feel like, I could see that was going to go wrong already, or I can see how that happened. That's unfortunate, but we can't put any intention. We don't think he intended to do it. That doesn't come into it. It happened or it didn't happen.
Yeah. Let's wind back the clock to 1989 when you started playing the great game of rugby union. How did you get involved in rugby, and what was the motivator behind it?
Were you born then?
I think I was about 3 or 4 years old.
I was at Canterbury University, and I was walking home to my flat, and I saw some women practicing on the field, and I was like, those are women. Gosh, I didn't know women played rugby here. And I mentioned it to my flatmate when I got home, and he was a Lincoln. I was at Canterbury, but he was at Lincoln, and he said, oh yeah, one of the girls in my class is that, she's in that team. And next thing, on the landline, I get a phone call, and why don't you come down and give it a go? And that's how it started. And Laurie O'Reilly was my coach, which I couldn't have been a better start.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. And of course, you have a long playing career in club rugby with women's rugby. Of course, you played a season for West, but you spent 10 years with the Wellington Axemen. Tell us about what women's club rugby was like then. And at the moment, women's club rugby is on a bit of a growth spurt at the moment across the country. Tell us about the growth of women's club rugby in Wellington.
So I think I got into a great part of the time in women's rugby in Wellington. So it was new. The Adidas had sponsored the New Zealand Rugby Union, the All Blacks, and the Black Ferns, and suddenly there was a lot more money happening and a bit more attention going into women's rugby, and so there was, it was a bit televised and so forth. So a lot of women started to come and wanted to learn to play rugby. It wasn't always easy, and our club, or even most of the clubs, nothing was set up as a facility for women to play. So changing rooms, kit, referees, time on the field. If you know Huddy Park, which is the home of the Axemen, there's only one field, and we were having, there were 10 or 12 or 14 teams all trying to practice on a Thursday night, and you can bet that they didn't give any time to the women. And so we would practice on the tennis court, the netball courts at the end in the dark or whatever. But over time, we gained the respect of the club, and one of our most famous alumni, Melody Robinson, she actually graced the cover of our magazine at the end of the year, and there was a few gentlemen like, "Ooh, there's never been a woman on the front of the book." So it was great, and then it was really strong. We had 2 teams for a while, 2 women's teams at the club, and so did others. And the Wellington representative rugby was really going from strength to strength as well. And Laurie O'Reilly had actually moved up to here by then. And then after him, there was a number of really good coaches as well. So it was a good time to be playing.
And also you played for the Wellington women's side, which is now called the Wellington Pride. And I've been noted by Adam Julian that you had a very momentous game, the last game at Athletic Park. Also tell us about that. But also you scored a try as the curtain raiser to the All Blacks tests in 2000. Yeah.
So yes, so the Athletic Park story is one to remember, because often people will say, there's a pub quiz question that who was the last game on Athletic Park, and people will say it was All Blacks France or whoever it was, but actually it was Wellington women versus Canada. And we played, and they were basically took the posts down as we were leaving. That was it. That was the last thing ever on the park. Wow. And it was a midweek game. It was quite hot, I remember that day, and we were scrabbling around for our jumpers, jerseys, and the union were again like a bit reluctant to do anything. But one of my teammates, she stopped and breastfed the baby at half time, and it was just so great. I loved it, and you can just imagine all the stalwarts of Athletic Park turning over in their shrouds and their graves at that. But at the end of the game, because it was the end of the Canadian tour, and it was also the end of the NPC season, we had these smanky old ex-men's jumpers, jerseys that we were playing in. We decided to swap them with the Canadian team. Oh my God, the Wellington Union lost the plot. Was so angry with us, sent us invoices for the replacement of the jerseys. It just was ridiculous, but anyway, there you go.
Well, that is quite amazing.
We won the game.
That's the main thing. You won the game.
Yeah.
Also, you've been noted for commentating the first Black Ferns test on live TV. Of course, you've been in radio commentary with Adam Julian and myself before, but tell us about being part of that famous commentary debut.
Oh, that was with Keith Quinn. Yeah, and so That was I was fortunate because I worked at Avalon Studios at the time, and I plucked up the courage to ring the head of sport in Auckland to say that, because they were covering the women's final and it was getting lots of publicity. And so I plucked up the courage to let him know that if he wanted some insightful comments, which was just so confident of me, really, I wasn't, that I'd be happy to do it. And he thought that was a great idea. So Keith and I did know Keith a little bit, didn't really know him that well. But anyway, we turned up, but the game was seriously delayed and it was already going to kick off at like 2 in the morning or 1 in the morning. Well, it didn't start till 3 or something. Oh, wow. And we missed the first. It was very interesting. You wouldn't have known it at home, but we had to add the beginning, end back onto the beginning or something like that because the coverage was all mixed up. But we ended up very, very late, and it was a good time. But the delay was live television, but it was delayed, so we had to keep inventing stuff to say to this live television audience of tens and tens of thousands. Actually, it was probably more. It was really well watched. Apparently, it was the more people watched that game than some big soccer match that was on. Wow. But yeah, so John Macbeth and Keith Quinn and me and the late Sukard and Bishop had to just keep trying to fill in time, waiting for the match to start.
Of course, last year there was the first ever President's Game of women's rugby. And of course, you played at that as well. But also last month was the hashtag Her Way, a campaign to promote women's rugby in Wellington. Tell us about both those key moments for Wellington women's rugby.
So the President's Game was an idea that the rugby union had, and went out to myself and Dawn Patalicio, who is, an absolute legend of North's rugby, over 300 matches, and said, how about we put something on for fun? And I wasn't sure if personally I didn't really want to play, but I was nervous about getting hurt and being so old and unfit. But in the end, we went out to, so I was team town and she was suburbs, and we managed to get many retired women to come along. And I think everyone was waiting for someone else to say yes. But anyway, on the day we had plenty of rolling sub-reserve, which was great. And it was great. We had women flying in from around the country just to play with us again. And nobody was injured, which was great. We called off the game at 3/4 time because we'd kind of all had enough by then. Yeah. And rugby was the winner. So that was good. But then they did ask us about doing it again this year, and it was like, yeah, it was good for a one-off. Maybe in another few years we'll see. Yeah. But yeah.
Now, of course, you have the Erin Rush Best and Fairest for women's rugby, and of course you have the great oversight of that of your name. But tell us about the individuals that have impressed in women's club rugby this season.
Oh God, I'm embarrassed to say I don't know.
Oh,
I haven't. I work on the weekends, yeah. So I don't get I don't get around the rugby as much as I'd like to. And when I can get out, I try and see my son plays. And so if I've got any time, I'll try and he's in his last year of school, so I've been seeing him. So I haven't seen. I'm ashamed to say I haven't seen any women's rugby, club rugby this season. And I can tell you, I'm not in charge of picking the best and fairest. That's the referees, I understand. So that no one's, but I am intrigued at seeing who's coming up, and who's who. So I'm sorry, I can't answer the club rugby question.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I mentioned that you are busy in the weekends. Of course, your job is you're one of the most prominent real estate agents in Wellington City with Harcourts. Tell us about how you manage your time with that. What does real estate take in terms of what is a very challenging marketplace at the moment?
Yes, it is. I've just got in from, what time are we now? 7:20. So I've literally got in about 1 minute to 7 tonight to race in and from work. So it is if you want it to be, you can work all the hours under the sun. I do work almost 7 days a week. I am driven. I've got a team of Nigel and Kendall, and between the three of us, we do a fair bit of business together, which is great. It's such a privilege. It's such a lucky job. But it's all consuming, and that's. But it's not a part-time job. But you know, at the same time, it means that if someone's like Stan might be playing midweek, I can generally buzz off. I might answer it only to myself, and so yeah, it's great. And if anyone wants to become a real estate agent, give me a shout. I'd be happy to chat to you.
Fantastic. Of course. Now you have the honour of being the first women's president of the Wellington Centurions Football Club. Tell us about how that came about, what the Centurions do, and I also believe that you want to promote something that is very important coming up next month.
Yes, thanks, Brad. So the Centurions, the way I say it, is that it was started as for men, of course, because only men were playing rugby back in the day. It's about 75 years strong now. It's for men who had played 100 matches for the Wellington province, when you probably had a lot more representative games in those days. Over time, and then these men, they formed this little elite club, and they ended up doing pretty cool things. Like they would go as a group to coach schoolboy rugby, and they would go all around the country, and I've got the books of the Centurions, and they did amazing things and stop, you know, they had like coaching games. They could stop and help young men. You know, Cal Tremaine was in these games, you know, Colin Meads were honorary Centurions, and because the Centurions are for Wellington clubs. Over time, of course, rugby's changed, and so the 100 matches for your province is very difficult to get now, and also our breadth of our work has changed. So it used to be pretty focused on schoolboy rugby, men's rugby for schoolboy rugby. Now it's for all rugby in Wellington from juniors through, and we're there to help and assist perhaps some of the players or teams, not so much team, but more like players and clubs that may need just a bit of a coaching hand or a step up. And we support the Wellington Rugby Union in the work it does. We might have a sponsor and put some money towards a team or whatever. So we're in lots of places helping with rugby, and like the Gareth Head Junior Rugby Clinic at the start of the year with Ken Laban, we've been the sponsor of that for the last 3 years. We've now got an under-18 women's Centurions team with a really awesome program. We've got a coach that's ready to go this year. Couldn't do anything last year. We've got the under-18 boys. We've got the development team, which is pretty much Wellington, you know, B team, the B team to the Lions. So it's now the Centurions B, or Centurions development team. So all those things take a lot of money and time, and we've got a great little team of volunteers and a lot of members that are you know, helpful and give us donations. And the big thing that we do is that we have a big luncheon once a year, which we haven't been able to hold for 2 years because of COVID and numbers and restrictions. So we raise lots and lots of money at that luncheon, and we give a lot of that money to the New Zealand Rugby Foundation, which is the organisation that looks after very seriously injured rugby players and their families. So it's a really important part to the things that I do. I love it, and you can really make a difference. And you see kids, little girls with the Centurions socks or something on, all the way through to our second tier Lions team, men's team, wearing the Centurions jersey. I'm really proud of all the things that we're doing, but we really, really need to sell some tickets to our lunch on the 15th of July. We've got Joe Schmidt. So this is the day before the Irish test in Wellington. It's at Sky Stadium. We can seat 700 people. We're hoping to sell all our tickets. We're about halfway there, or just over. You get Joe Schmidt's our speaker. Raylene Castle is also a speaker. So, two amazing sports administrators and coaches with lots of great things to share with us. Lunch and booze is on. Tickets are $195, and you can buy a table, and there'll be a lot of our VIP, which is our very injured players in their wheelchairs, which we invite, of course, and they come, and that is who we're raising money for as much as our own teams. So we'd love to sell some tickets. So maybe get hold of me, erinrush.com or 021 455 722, and I can sort you out.
Oh, what a fantastic cause, particularly New Zealand Rugby Foundation. It's great to see, those players that suffer serious injuries and getting that support that's needed. Well, Erin, I've actually had you on longer than I expected, but it's been a fantastic chat. The work that you're doing with women's rugby and also the Centurions and what you do outside of rugby is simply amazing. Many thanks for coming on the Huddy Hui tonight.
Cheers. Thanks.
Cheers, Erin. Well, Erin Rush, former Black Fern, awesome work that she's doing with rugby. We've got another episode of the Huddy Hui this week. It's on Friday at 7:00. Our guest will be Zane Ainsley, the Huddy Boys Maris fullback, and joining me as guest host again will be Mitchell Goff from the Pōneke Rugby Club, man of true character. So make sure you tune into the Huddy Hui, 7:00.